Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. As you see by the title, this is the first episode, I guess, of my Faust series. I did a little announcement video earlier on the channel, and now this is the first part, which is quite fitting because I just got home from our first class meeting and it was really lovely. I met great new friends, and our professor is very nice, and she has quite some interesting backgrounds to bring to the course. And yeah, so this video is just a little introduction on the topic, what we are looking at in our class, and also what will happen in this series on this channel. So as you probably know by watching the announcement video, but I will repeat it now for everyone who has not watched that, I'm taking a course for my German literature studies, where we look at Faust. First of all, the story Faust by Goethe, but we also look at how it is shown in various forms of art, and that's what we are looking at and what we are doing. My group that I built with two new friends is we will look at the portrayal of Mephisto in art, which is quite obvious because Mephisto is my favorite character in Faust. If you stalk my social medias, you know that. I freak out about Mephisto on a regular basis. So yeah, which is weird, I know, but I think we will get into my fascination of or about Mephisto later in the series. But for now, I wanted to kind of introduce you with the new facts I learned or knew already or got reheard today about Faust on its own, but also how it is perceived in art. I have my course notebook here, so I have my notes and here so I don't forget anything. This should count as a little introduction for everyone who wants to, for example, read along or join in the discussion, or maybe if you want to do a response video, just to have a little background about what we're going to talk about. So the first fact I want to throw at you is something that I think a lot of people are familiar with, but you might not, and that's that the history of Faust was there before Goethe wrote the story. Goethe's story is the most famous one, but it was there before. The story was there before Goethe wrote about it. For example, Christopher Marlowe wrote about the history of Dr. Faustus. I will try to find a link to the Goodreads page of that if I can. And at that time, at that period, it was Dr. Faustus was the story about the rather high or the too high self-confidence of scholastic people or scholastics. Like Faust is one. He is a scholar, basically. And it was kind of about how they perceived themselves as something bigger than they actually are. Which Goethe quite changed up and made Faust a more relatable and more sympathetic character. And Goethe wrote Faust, or like everything surrounding Faust, over 60 years. So we have like the origin story of Goethe's Faust takes place over 60 years, which is a massive time period, a massive commitment. And you can see that reflected in the story, because our professor mentioned that there's quite some parallels between Goethe and Faust in the story, which I would like to get into probably next week. A little comparison also between the sorrows of young Werther, as well as Faust and Goethe. So that's what I will talk about, or one thing I will talk about next week. So yeah, but I will get to that later. So there's that. And as I said, changing up the original tale of Faust, that he made him more sympathetic and more relatable, because it was also a mirror of the problems of his time period. And the storyline with Gretchen, or what is she called in Gretchen, is also very new, because it was just a little side character, Gretchen, and not really important. So she almost shifted from a really unimportant side character to almost the main role, or almost the main focus. And you can see that reflected in art as well, because there's a scene where Faust is giving her some how do you say it, accessories, and this is a very influential piece of the story for the art. There's a lot of depiction of this scene, and Gretchen gets a lot of attention in art and is almost made the main role. There's also, which is quite interesting, a lot of different how do you say it, perceptions of, or art forms that were presented, or that represented Faust. For example, there was an opera by this man called Gounod. I will link his name down below. And the funny thing is that this opera was called Margarete in German, which is Gretchen, which also shows that she was the center of many perceptions of Faust. And there was also circus's performance and varieté performance on Faust. And there were postcards, hideous postcards. Our professor showed them to us, and they were hideous, like hideous. But there's also that. And she talked about something which she told us that we are going to visit an exhibition. And she told us that she found that this was not really well represented in the exhibition, and that's the political aspect of Faust. There is quite a dark side to Faust. I personally knew that already, but I think it's something that a lot of people are not aware of. During the Nazi regime in Germany, Faust, the story of Faust, was used for propaganda by the Nazi regime to show this perfect German example, which is, if you read the story, quite weird. But yeah, I will get into that once we are reaching that point in the course, because I think personally that's something that's very interesting to consider. And yes, so that's the main introduction and what we are going to look at. Now what I want to do on this channel is go a little bit along with that, read along in the book, which I've seen that many of you, or some of you, have purchased this copy for this series, which is really, really lovely. If you want to do that now, it's the Oxford World's Classics edition with it's the new translation by David Luke, and it's just Goethe, Faust, Part 1. I will link a Goodreads link down below. This is obviously not the copy we are reading for our class because it's in English, but it's the copy I chose to read along with you. And yes, so I want to read along with the book, pick some scenes where we discussed scenes, pick some things we discussed in the class surrounding art, and some personal insights and points I want to make. So, if you like and want to read along, maybe read the introduction of this for next week. It's like I'm giving you some homework to do. You don't have to. But the introduction maybe, and if you don't want to read the introduction, skip it and maybe read it at the end. It's quite well written and interesting. But maybe read from the beginning to the end of the scene called Street. That's page 95. I will also link that down below of this edition. So yeah, so we can discuss it maybe, and if you like, you can do a response video or a discussion on what you've read as well. This is just, again, a little introduction into the field and what we're going to talk about in my class and on this channel. And if you want to join along, please do. And yeah, I will see you soon in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.